Poet and novelist Sylvia Plath was born on October 27, 1932, in Boston. Sylvia Plath was a gifted and troubled poet, known for the confessional style of her work. Her interest in writing emerged at an early age, and she started out by keeping a journal. After publishing a number of works, Plath won a scholarship to Smith College in 1950. While she was a student, Sylvia Plath spent time in New York City during the summer of 1953, working for Mademoiselle magazine as a guest editor. Soon after, Plath tried to kill herself by taking sleeping pills. She eventually recovered, having received treatment during a stay in a mental health facility. Plath returned to Smith and finished her degree in 1955. A Fulbright Fellowship brought Sylvia Plath to Cambridge University in England. While studying at the university's Newham College, she met the poet Ted Hughes. The two married in 1956 and had a stormy relationship. In 1957, Plath spent time in Boston to study with the poet Robert Lowell, and met fellow poet and student Anne Sexton. She also taught English at Smith College around the same time. Plath returned to England in 1959. A poet on the rise, Sylvia Plath had her first collection of poetry, The Colossus, published in England in 1960. The same year, she gave birth to her first child, a daughter named Frida. 2 years later, Plath and Hughes welcomed a second child, a son named Nicholas. Unfortunately, the couple's marriage was falling apart. After Hughes left her for another woman in 1962, Sylvia Plath fell into a deep depression. Struggling with her mental illness, she wrote The Bell Jar in 1963, her only novel, which was based on her life and deals with one young woman's mental breakdown. Plath published the novel under the pseudonym Victoria Lucas. She also created the poems that would make up the collection Ariel in 1965, which was released after her death. Sylvia Plath committed suicide on February 11, 1963. All of this was just too much for her to bear. Sylvia was losing her ability to cope. She rung up local friends of hers the weekend before killing herself, asking if she could bring her and the children over to their place for a few days so she could get some assistance. She told her friends that a nurse then would be coming the following Monday morning to help her with the children. Sylvia wasn't able to care for the children at all that weekend. She could barely eat either. She wanted to lay in bed mostly and discuss her anger and resentment about Ted's abandonment. She couldn't get over it. It was all too much. Sunday night, her friend's husband drove Sylvia and the children home. They didn't feel comfortable leaving her alone with them, but since they knew the nurse was coming the next day, they weren't too worried. She was only going to be coping alone for just one night. Well, she didn't make it. In the early morning hours of February 11, 1963, after opening up the window in her children's room and leaving a tray of bread and milk for them, Sylvia taped up the doors to the kitchen shut and sealed herself tight with towels underneath the door. Placing her cheek on a folded towel, she placed her head into a gas oven and asphyxiated herself. Much to the dismay of some admirers of Sylvia Plath, Ted Hughes became her literary executor after her death. While there has been some speculation about how he handled her papers and her image, he did edit what is considered to be, by many, her greatest work, Ariel. It featured several of her most well-known poems, including Daddy and Lady Lazar's. He continued to produce new collections of Plath's work. Sylvia Plath won the Pulitzer Prize in 1982 for collected poems. She is still a highly regarded and much-studied poet to this day. Mental illness refers to a wide range of mental health conditions, disorders that affect your mood, thinking, and behavior. Examples of mental illness include depression, anxiety disorders, schizophrenia, eating disorders, and addictive behaviors. Many people have mental health concerns from time to time, but a mental health concern becomes a mental illness when ongoing signs and symptoms cause frequent stress and affect your ability to function. A mental illness can make you miserable and can cause problems in your daily life, such as at school or work or in relationships. In most cases, symptoms can be managed with a combination of medications and talking therapy. Signs and symptoms of mental illness can vary, depending on the disorder, circumstances, and other factors. Mental illness symptoms can affect emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. Examples of signs and symptoms include feeling sad or down, confused thinking or reduced ability to concentrate, excessive fears or worries, or extreme feelings of guilt, extreme mood changes of highs and lows, withdrawal from friends and activities, significant tiredness, low energy, or problem sleeping, detachment from reality, paranoia, or hallucinations, inability to cope with daily problems or stress, trouble understanding and relating to the situations and to people, alcohol or drug abuse, major changes in eating habits, sex drive changes, excessive anger, hostility, or violence, suicidal thinking. If you have any signs or symptoms of a mental illness, see your primary caregiver, provider, or mental health specialist. Most mental illnesses don't improve on their own, and if untreated, a mental illness may get worse over time and cause serious problems.